Let's give me here. Who else would it be? This is the Bitcoin brief for May 19th. Hope you've had a good day and a good weekend. um, Lots of things have taken place. We also have some new changes for those of you that may be in my A-Room group. If you're not in my A-Room group and you want to, go ahead and check the link in my bio. If you're on X, link in the description on YouTube. And so for the weekend, we had a little bit of a choppy Friday, Saturday. We had a pretty good pump on Sunday. That's something I kind of mentioned on X, and we got kind of a reactive, bearish reaction right here. At the moment, we're already down about 3.5 for Bitcoin already, almost 5% for Ethereum, and almost 6% for Solana. So it's a little bit deeper than we might expect. Now we're going to get into that. We're going to get into a few things. We'll parse this out: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Bitcoin briefs, as you can understand in the title, I'm going to spend most of my time with Bitcoin, probably about half this video on just Bitcoin. I might cover the dominance chart. If you want something more weekly time frame, because this is going to be a daily time frame, Observations with Otsu is my video of choice that I would recommend. I go over the weekly time frames in those videos. And it covers the Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and some altcoins too. Now that the markets are behaving a little more reactive, I'm probably going to add some alts to that again, like I used to. A lot of people wanted me to cover altcoins, but with the market dead a few months ago, I decided not to do that. So, but for this video, it's really just daily and 4 hour. If you're looking for more coins to cover, that's what my A-Rune trading group is for. And so go ahead and check that out. I do have some extra covers. I tend to cover approximately about 20 coins a week. It tends to be the case, and give or take, it just depends on the market mood there. So anyway, enough rambling. Let's get started. So with Bitcoin here, so if you notice here, we have two trades here, and these are my targets. You can go ahead and check videos that I've had before. This is kind of what I've been looking at. Our entry here was basically right at here at this close, okay, at 83,476. The other one was down here after the reclaim. So this one was actually done first, and that was based off of the reclaim of this level. That was active. This one was a reactive level of the flip of this area. Both of these have now taken profits. This is a 3-hour trade. This is a 5-hour trade. It's about 8-hour total, 27%, 31% total. So, and one of the reasons, actually, I'll probably bring this back here just a second. One of the reasons I had this target is, one, I wanted to match the top here, and I thought that was a safe place to take profits. It could certainly run, and this was before it dropped, obviously. But the next thing I wanted to look at was, the reason I took profits is because we have a divergence here. Okay, my system, the system I created, one of my rules is I take profits at divergences, especially at divergence highs. And so if you notice here, divergence is one particular method. So I always look for things that are going on in the markets, conditions, right? And so if I can find two or more conditions, that is considered confluence. And if I have confluence, then I react to that. And that's how I end up with what I call a high probability system, or what I call the apex system. That's what I do. And that's how I do that. I look for correlations of two or more instances that kind of mesh together. And we have this. We have a high right here, and we have a divergence. And we also have resistance technically. And so forget the high part of it, but like when you have a divergence at resistance, you should absolutely consider taking profits. Absolutely. And this qualified completely, and this is what I took on here. And so it was a very solid trade. We already have a pretty good reaction here. I think this might come back up a little bit. It's really too early to tell. We still got 18.5 hours left. Got plenty of time for this to run. This is my pre-parabolic trend line that I focused on here. I mentioned that if we breached against this zone, that we would continue to rally. We did. Now we have a divergence in place, so that does change a little bit here. And so I think it's a little preemptive to say this, but I'll say it anyway. I think that we're going to have a little bit of a choppy week, possibly. And I was going to say this for Observations with Otsu, but we've had a pretty good run up. We've had pretty much 6 green candles here, and that often tends to be the record here. We have one in here in between, but usually we don't go too many. We don't have to. That's not a pattern that I really focus on, but we are overdue for, I say maybe not overdue, but it shouldn't shock anybody that we get a bearish week at one point, okay? And part of my observations with Otsu commentary will be that People just really this is gonna give people a reason to try to be bearish instead, and I think that's a mistake. I think things are still way bullish here, but we just probably need to get a little bit of a drop down first. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at. Now, how do I analyze this? We got a lot of chicken scratch on here. I'm going to get rid of some of this as I'm kind of chit-chatting. But one of the things I'm looking at is really just these two levels right here. And I'm going to put this together like so. And this is the big level for me. Top side of 106.528. That's what we basically closed at just previously. Low end of this is about 98.258. Sorry, a lot of numbers there. And so I did a post a few days ago. I think it was roughly right on here that I thought that Bitcoin would go back down to 102, and we technically did get that range, but I still think that we could come back below. But this is the criteria. We have the high range of the 106, the low range 98, and the mid range 102.3. And so this gives you a good guideline, and this is just how I operate. I operate within the bounds of this fib block, the high, the low, the mid. That helps me identify the supply and demand and the measurement together, which is the midline between the supply and demand. And so that's how it works. So as long as the goal here, as long as we're in this blue area, as long as we're above 102.3 and some change, this should still continue to be bullish. And so this is what I'm looking at now. Going on the 4 hour here, just briefly, we had a drop down here. If we continue to go, this can be a good deviation pattern typically. And we have something like this. It looks very similar, but it happened much faster. Could be a downtrend here that we're looking at. As you can see here, if I can get my tool, this is not going to be perfect, but you see the lows here kind of match the lows here somewhat. That's kind of what I'm looking for here. Now, if the lows here can match the lows there, then I think we're just fine. But if we continue to go, if we close below this level, about 104.6, 104.6.5, we should continue to rally downward, or I guess drop, I should say. So even if we close like a hair below this, we should accelerate downward. That's what I'm looking for from a bearish perspective. And so this is where you're going to get tripped up, because some people want to be, a lot of bulls want to stay bullish here, and I completely understand. A lot of bears have just been pulling their hair out, waiting for a downward move, and they're currently getting one. Okay, and so they're trying to get excited about this, and I think both of them are wrong. I think both of them are wrong right now. I've been bullish. I've been more bullish than a lot of people. Been bullish really ever since the 70,000 range, or 78 or 6 or whatever. But I do think it's time to kind of let the waters calm down a little bit. And so this is where we're going to get that range bound that I thought that we would get last week, and we did not. And knowing that we got a divergence when I thought that we would get a chop makes me feel more confident that we will get that chop this week. So makes me feel like that my intuition wasn't really wrong. And it can be wrong. I'm not saying it should or shouldn't, but I feel like it might have been delayed. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at. We'll see. Really, this is a key level here on the dailies at 102. But ideally, you want to play this range. This is where a lot of people are going to be impatient. Bears, like I said, are going to try to short this. Probably not worth the risk right now, mainly because we're not parabolic. I would not short anything until we get parabolic. And then for longs, we're still rejecting here. So my concern is, if you're bullish, I would want to buy dips instead. I wouldn't necessarily buy breakouts right now. Buying breakouts this is not the time. I still think buying dips. I still think that we're going to lower, but this is the key range, this big range here between 106 and 98. If we break down 198, we got more problems here. I think that we could honestly go as low as 87, 88. That's a possibility, but I think it's too early to kind of, massage that in our minds on where targets can go. So this is the key range for me. As far as ARM goes, we're kind of getting a split here both ways. It's kind of indication that a parabolic uptrend. But when we get parabolic uptrends with divergences, it does tend to snap back. So we need to be careful for that. I don't think there's a hidden bull div here. This is very close. But I think I'm going to forego it for now. I think there's much more evidence with this range that we're going to just trade this range first. Whenever we get into a range, you should be trading that range, in my opinion. I think that's a very key way to look at things from a perspective like this. Let's go to Ethereum, down about 5% here. We have the divergence here again, and Solana does too, by the way. It's very interesting how like divergences do often show you the top, and people still ignore them. You have influencers that have 400,000 followers or more, or 500 or 600, and then telling you that divergences don't work. And sometimes I wonder if they do say that so that you could be their exit liquidity. So, because some of these people got $250,000 membership groups per month, and so just something to keep in mind. Had the divergence, had the deviation here, so I think that we are going to come back down to about 226 or 2226, I should say. Have a bearish consolidation with a 50% marker, so that's pretty strong. Should continue to go downward. We also had a bearish breaker here, so I would not be surprised if we actually go back down to 1800 and 1860, I should say. And this is, again, this is where things are going to trip up. I think that we could go down all the way to 1800 again and still be bullish. But a lot of people are going to interpret that as bearish. And I think that we are on a neutral cool down. I think it's much different than a bearish move. Mainly because the focus should be in terms of R&R. Okay, I don't believe there's a lot of R&R here for the short side, at least unless you're looking at 30-minute market time frames. I think it's much better idea to try a DCA at good levels. 1863 would be a great level. I think 2226 would be as well. Our size is kind of floating around, but that's pretty much it for Ethereum. And then for Solana, down about 6%. Again, you had this bearish divergence here, had the drop down deviation. Now the thing about this one, this actually recovered through because of the band here. But this is an active candle. If we close below here, especially if we close below the band here, like 161, that means we're probably going to go down to at least the mid at 146. So we'll see. I think it's interesting. It's all over the board right now. So we'll just see how this goes. So anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed that. I do have observations though to next. Premium Apex Trading Group or Aaron Trading Group. I have two names for the same group, so working on kind of a soft rebrand with that. But yeah, so that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.